Good morning and many thanks for watching KTN. Welcome to this special edition where today we are following up on the biggest story on the land today. That is the swearing in of Professor Kindiki as the Deputy President. It will be important to remember that yesterday the courts stayed the orders, that is lifted the orders rather, that paved way for him to be sworn in as the third deputy president under the 2010 Constitution. But even as we just have the discussions on matters to do with him being sworn in today, the big question is, how did we get here? In studio with me, I have Fanyamambo Kinuthia, who is a lawyer. Welcome very much. And Sandra Njoki, who is a political analyst. Karibu sana. And Peter Musende, who is a political analyst as well. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on the set today as we have the discussions on matters to do with the swearing in today. It is the first that we are seeing in this country that is following the impeachment of a deputy president. Has never happened in this country before. But today we just get to have a discussion and understand, how did we get here? What does this mean going forward? Because we've opened the Pandora's box. We've seen that a deputy president can be impeached. There is a process. What does this mean for the presidency and all that? But the events that led to the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua, now the initiation of the motion, which was taken into the House by Kibwezi MP Mwengi Mutuse. Now, ladies and gentlemen, how did we get here? How did it get to a point that the former DP, the impeached DP Rigathi Gachagua, found himself where he is today? Sandra.
I think we got there because we are pandemically a country of politics. I say so because when the former deputy president got into office, he actually forgot that campaigns are over. And, you know, the whole modus operandi of being in office, national leadership, I want to believe totally evaded him. And while there is the Kenya School of Government, which I believe they went through a session, I think the whole political nature of Rigathi Gachagua refused to be subdued. And I say this because, you know, this whole problem started when the president decided he was going to have a conversation with Raila Odinga. And because we had heard the deputy president saying, Ameka mitego, 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 kila mahali, obviously the concept of a conversation with Raila Odinga was something that he was not going to take very lightly. Probably the only thing that I could say maybe the executive did a little bit wrong was that he probably, I'm not saying that I know, but probably he did not take time to, how do I say, coax the old man to come out from that hard line stand of mitego to appreciating that, like it or not, Raila Odinga is a man who, if you do not, you know, sort of have a line of conversation open, he can be a constant source of disruption. And so the president really had no choice. But unfortunately, Rigathi Gachagua refused to, you know, take on the national leadership or national governance hat, and he retained the political hat, which had this animosity against
Mitego.
Yes.
And Peter, I see you smile from where you sit. Now, is the Raila factor to something to talk about in terms of where Rigathi Gachagua finds himself today, or rather where Professor Kindiki finds himself? Is the Raila factor a subject of conversation and consideration on why we are here today? Because nimeka mitego, but seems like mitego imerudi kamnasa.
You know, we have given ourselves a progressive document in the name of Constitution 2010. And as a political leader, and especially when you get an office, it is important to become a dynamic person, because dynamics in politics and leadership keeps changing every day. And therefore, as a reader, if you want to become relevant, if you want to go with the trends, if you want to go with how systems are working, you need to be alive to the fact that, as Sandra has ably put it, we are pandemically a political country. And therefore, politics start immediately after we finish voting. Even before we announce the winner, we are now talking about some other election to come. And therefore, even when you get an office, it is important for you to start, because you realize that when you're campaigning and when you're asking for votes, you are a very good darling of the people. Wait until you're given power, and somehow certain clique of people turns you to become the villain. And therefore, as a reader in power, you have to be progressive and dynamic in order to remain relevant in an otherwise hot political systems in this country. And therefore, the president found himself in a precarious position where he needed to reach out to the other side so that they can actually have a peaceful country to run. And unfortunately, his deputy refused to walk the journey with the president. And you realize that being the principal assistant to the president, and as one of the judges yesterday gave a ruling that the position of a deputy president at this constitution is a very important position, because you deputize the president in executive functions. And that means if I am the president and the person who is supposed to deputize me, the person who is supposed to take over if the worst was to happen, is not in line with what the dream I have and the journey I have, it is only fair that you take an axe and take down that part that is pulling you behind. And I think the deputy president, former deputy president Rigathi Gachagua, failed to understand the test of time. And he even when in his defense, you must have heard him saying that he was elected and he has been insinuating something called a co-presidency. The presidency is a very generous institution, and the framers of the constitution never envisioned two positions of power or two centers of power.
And Kinuthia, now, yesterday at the courts, we saw all these orders being lifted, and this has created jurisprudence and a certain precedent moving forward. So in terms of the position of the deputy president in this republic and the ruling that was made yesterday, including what happened in the National Assembly and the Senate, anyone who wants to be a deputy president in this country, how should they operate?
First and foremost, how did we get here? We are speaking of tolerance and intolerance. We now realize that we had a very tolerant man in the person of President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. The things he underwent under his deputy, President Ruto has not gone through a third of that. Yet he tolerated, he waited, he finished the first term and went through a second humiliating term as the head of state. And our deputy who never listened to him, watch a campaign and a tanga throughout. So it's about the person. It's got nothing to do with institutions and dreams. And what dream does Kenya Kwanza have for this country? Shah, Shif, Adani, what? Where? I mean, there was nothing about being aligned to a dream. Which dream? Where is this country headed right now? Everybody knows 72% of Kenyans are saying it's heading in the wrong direction. So there's nothing like being aligned to a dream whatsoever. It's about tolerance and intolerance on the parts and the personalities of the people. And I dare say that what President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta went through under his deputy was worse. So I think what we needed to do is also, as we go into elections next time, let us look at the temperaments of people. Let us look at people who can live with each other, people who can tolerate each other. I mean, we all tolerate the people we live with, our own brothers, our own sisters, our own wives, our own husbands. Some of them are not the best people. Some of the people who are very successful in marriages is not because they have the best wives or the best husbands. I heard Rigiji say yesterday or the other day that he keeps begging his wife every day, in the morning, in the evening, he talks to her nicely. It's about tolerance. We have to have a country where I tolerate you and I can live with you and I accept your weaknesses and I try to live with you knowing that I cannot change you. You cannot change a 60-year-old person. But coming to the law, I am a very disturbed person. Because every Kenyan today who has tried getting a gazette notice, one, you know, you have a succession case and you need a gazette notice just to get letters of administration. You wait at government printers for 60 days. just to get you as printed. You try to change your name, you've gotten a name. I mean, I am helping young girls who've gotten jobs in Qatar. And they come to my office and they say, we are trying to do a deed poll to change a name. Just to change one name because so that it's aligned the birth certificate and the ID so that it can come out so that they are together and I can be able to get a passport to go and work in Qatar. They have to wait up to 90 days to get a deed poll. You impeach a deputy president at 11 in the night, and by 5 in the morning, there's a gazette notice to that effect. How efficient can these people be when it's about them, and how inefficient can they be when it's about Kenyans? So as Kenyans, we are seeing an insult to the law. I mean, we have never seen a legal process where you wake up in the morning and tell people, and I have always said, first and foremost, get it very clearly. I did not vote for President William Ruto, but he's my president. That I have to accept. I did not vote for Igiji, but he was my deputy president. I have never supported them, by the way. Let that be very clear. But when it comes to the issue of the abuse of the human rights of a person, then I come and say, I stand with the rights of this person. And I refuse to watch any Kenyan having their rights taken away from them. When you come up with a parliamentary sitting on Tuesday, and set up a special sitting on Friday, what you are trying to say is you are calling the hangman and telling him, I am having a case in court, and I'm preparing you, just prepare the news, you're going to hang somebody on Friday. So you've already decided that someone is going to be hanged on Friday. You've called the hangman, you've told him to prepare the rope, you've told him to prepare the hanging place, and so on and so forth. So I am fighting for the rights of Rigiji, not because I like him. And I know I have fought him for very many years. And not because I like him, but because we love the law. And we would have wanted to see the law followed. Right now, we are about to swear in Professor Kindiki. If you allow me in 30 seconds, I know I've spoken too much. We are about to swear in Professor Kindiki. And in in his appointment, what we saw, one of the things that the president noted there was that he had a conferment with IEBC. Which one? So there is an insult to the law, and I am thoroughly ashamed to say that what the courts have done is not free and is not fair.
Sandra, now there's a few issues that Kinuthia has raised in terms of efficiency of institutions that we have. He's rightfully said you want a gazette notice, takes you 90 days, but seemingly even Kenyans are now excited. Kumbe National Assembly can actually be efficient and can really work when they want to work. Moving forward, even for the president and the deputy, in terms of maintaining what they've started, what's in their interim moving forward?
Well, before we go that route, it's good to always have a balanced conversation. And I made my opening remarks on what the history of where we got to, and I almost feel like they were rubbished. I didn't expect that, we would start with such animosity so early. But I want to retract, to go back to the beginning and say, I think it's very narrow to compare what has happened between President Ruto and the former deputy Rigathi Gachagua, and to compare that with Uhuru Kenyatta and when President Ruto was the deputy president. First of all, it's an insult to people's intelligence to say that Uhuru Kenyatta was taken through a lot by his then deputy president, William Ruto, when we all witnessed that when the handshake happened, immediately former deputy president William Ruto was alienated. He was really made a pariah in that government by saying that Uhuru Kenyatta was extremely nice. Is like assuming that the rest of us live in Mars or lived in Mars during that time. I want to testify that I was actually here in Kenya, and I can tell you that we saw a thorough disrespect of the law and of the rule of law at the time, because we saw junior government officials like the PS of Interior, Kibisho. We saw, and I call them junior because they were junior to the deputy president. And they used to insult him. We saw the CS of, was he of wildlife at the time? I can't remember his name, Keriako Tobiko, outrightly saying that the deputy president then was a mere clerk You know, so when someone tries to tell us that Uhuru Kenyatta was such an amazing, wonderful guy, and that the deputy president then Ruto mistreated him, I think we're not being honest. It's one thing to play to that gallery because you're against this government, but I believe when we have shows like this, we're here to educate the public so that we can walk them through as individuals in a certain level of civic education for the public, so they can understand where we are at and they can understand where they are at as a country and what their options are, you know, going forward.
Sandra, you mentioned something when the handshake happened, Raila Odinga was involved. In this case as well, seemingly there is also another handshake that happened, the broad-based government that we talk about, and it's at that point that Rigathi Gachagua and all these things are happening. So is Raila the problem?
Well, we would want to take a shortcut and say yes, Raila is a problem. But why? The only reason we would say Raila is a problem is because we have all come to a point where we acknowledge that Raila is an extremely powerful opposition leader, that Raila has an extremely powerful opposition nation that backs him up, and therefore it means that Raila cannot be ignored. And when the Ruto government came into power, I think, and I can't even say I think, I will probably say that they assumed that this is government that's going to be able to handle Raila. And up to a point, they realized, this is a really strong opposition figure. And it takes a very strong character to come back and say, you know what? I had said there'll be no Nusumkate. I'm not talking to this Mzee, but for God and country, President Ruto looked and said, look, there are protests going on. And then, you know, even when the protests were quelled, he realized that there's a lot of animosity. There's a section of the country that has been left behind unhappy. And he had people like the majority leader, Kimani Ichung'wah, actually say to him, we won't make it like this. We have got to mend bridges. And that is why NADCO was formed. Unfortunately, we have the former deputy president, Rigathi Gachagua, who refused to buy in to that story. He still probably maintained we can manage to manage this Mzee. But the president decided, I don't want to manage this Mzee. I want to have a conversation with him. I want to have a relationship with him for the sake of this country. So I think the other thing that I want to talk about is that the Parliament and the Senate went through a constitutional process. The fact that they're supposed to, the Constitution says that process should have gone through in 60 days does not mean that they should have stretched their conversation to the point where they cover 60 days. Okay? I've got to finish. You gave everybody else a good... The fact is, Mombasa to Nairobi by road is 8 hours, Dennis.
Yeah.
If I zoom by and I don't get caught by the cops, and I get to Mombasa in about 5.5 hours, you cannot tell me go back to Voi and drive back until your journey is 8 hours. We've got to get some things right. Yeah. So efficiency is there. And the part about the Gazette notice, let's not lie to ourselves. The government has been on your marks, very ready. Should the courts lift it, then they're ready to go. You don't expect the government to act inefficient to please you and to show you that, we were not waiting.
Peter,
Yes.
Now, we cannot stretch it all the way to 60 days, as Sandra says. Yes. But Kenyans equally want services like that. Like when I come to serve, I gave you a job to work for me. There are constitutional mandates that I ought to get from you. If it's share and shift, how are you moving me? What procedure are you using? How is my data being transferred? It is information that Kenyans ought to have, and it's rightfully in the law. And even as we talk about that, now here's a question where the handshake, and we talk about broad-based government, there is a common figure. Back then, the current president, William Ruto, was opposed to the handshake. Same way Rigiji was opposed. Rigathi Gachagua was opposed to the broad-based government. So in this case, as we move forward, with seemingly the fact that there is an opposition figure that someone would want to say that is there to scuttle the government and all this. How then does the fact that Kenyans go to the elections every 5 years to elect a certain government, and there is a government that will be formed whether you supported it or not, and there is a place for the opposition. Yeah, as we speak today, what role is the opposition playing if they are in government?
Okay, first of all, as I respond to you, I find it not being honest when you compare the process of doing a gazette notice for swearing in with succession. Section 40 on the Law on Succession Act gives the succession a minimum of 6 months. A minimum of 6 months for the process to complete. Legislation, the Birth and Death, the Registration Act, the Marriage Act, gives a minimum of 6 months for you to change a name. And therefore, the statutes of law caps that particular process at a certain period. The issues of swearing in, there is a period given between this day one and 74 days, as it has been canvassed at the Supreme, at the court, the High Court. And therefore, when you give issues and raise emotions that Kenyans will think that tomorrow if I walk into court, I will get succession done in 2 or 3 days. That luxury of time frame between this and this is not in some of these acts. And now coming to the issue of Raila Odinga and handshake and what have you, I've told you as a reader, in a country that is permanently on a political drive 24/7, you need to be dynamic when you get to leadership. You need to look at what am I going to do, because sometimes you must look at what if I don't do this and the country does not survive the onslaught? Are we going to have a country tomorrow where some other people will come and fight for the same presidency? And I think this is where Professor George Saitoti said that at times a nation is far much important than an individual. And I think for me it's that the deputy president, the former deputy president, did not realize that tidings have changed. And you realize that we do not have a presidential system in this country. Neither would I say we have a parliamentary system. I see my country as a constitutional democracy, and that constitutional democracy is the one that has created a post-election coalition, collaboration. They provide for collaboration between political parties, and therefore, has the president done anything outside the constitutional democracy that we have in the country? Absolutely not. By reaching out, has the president gone back to his word saying he will not have a handshake? It is a dynamic nation requiring dynamic systems of leadership, that when the need be for me to look for a settle, I have to, because the country has to survive and the country has to move on. And I think for me that as a nation, we must not prey to the emotions of Kenyans by raising the emotions. Of course, I know everybody looking for a political position in 2027. This is a very good platform for them to sell emotions to the members of the public. But the bottom line was the former deputy president removed in accordance with the Constitution? The answer is yes. We must not become a nation that castigates the judiciary because we did not get a favorable ruling. Remember, the same court that said, look, you have not done a proper election in 2017, please go back and do it. Some of the people who are celebrating then are now crying that the courts are not fair and they are not doing the right thing. We must become a nation that appreciates that we have what we call, I'm not a lawyer myself, but I am entitled to read the jurisprudence of the courts, that when making a ruling, they borrow a lot from other judgments that have been made before. And as much as a ruling does not favor the side that you support, the question is, has that ruling been based on a judicial jurisprudence that is in tandem with Kenya, which is a member of the Commonwealth nations. And that is where we must borrow our jurisprudence and all that thing. So I find it that it is very interesting that you'd cast interior motives on the judiciary simply because it did not give you a favorable ruling. And I think that is surely it is not honest. This government has been at the receiving end of the judiciary because some major acts of parliament, they are being said that they were not in tandem with the constitution.
Okay, Peter, I'll come back to you before I come to Kinuthia. But let's go to KICC, where our reporter Daniel Kariuki is and is following up on what is happening there. Good morning to you, Daniel Kariuki. You're joining us from the epicenter where the swearing in will be taking place today. Kindly just bring us up to speed on the mood on the ground, who has arrived, and the preparations that is ongoing as we speak.
Clarity check, 1, 2. Very much, and just like
1, 2.
Getting back to Kariuki in a few, but Peter, just finish up on what you're saying in a minute.
So I'm like, this government has, this judiciary has told the government, please go back and review these acts. They are not in tandem with our constitutional provision. The government chose not to appeal some of these things and went right back to parliament to do this. And you know, when the court, as Justice Ogora Ebri put it yesterday, that impeachment are natural, political in their nature. And therefore, it is a political process that does not fall beyond the judicial review. And I think for me that as a country, we may not like the political moves and maneuvers being done, but when it comes to the application of the law, we must not be out here castigating judiciary, especially if you are a lawyer hoping to appear before.
Let us actually just speak to the lawyer. Let us actually just speak to the lawyer. Kinuthia, a lot has been said. The jurisprudence of the court, the government, and the cases that it's taken. But from where you sit, even the exercise that happened, the impeachment of the former deputy president. From where you sit, as much as it's a political process, it is enshrined in the law. Did it follow the law?
I have told you that when you follow the law with a premeditation to break it, when you set up a parliamentary sitting on Tuesday to impeach the deputy president and call for a special sitting on Friday, it means that you've already predetermined what you're going to do. And it means that you're trying to obstruct the process of justice. I have already told you, I have never liked the person of Ricky. I have never liked this administration. However, I still love my country, and I still love the rule of law, and it has to be observed. When a statement is given on the appointment of a deputy president that states there was consultation with EACC, now, EACC was consulted that very night because the statement comes in the morning, and this is someone who was impeached at night. Then, I think between midnight and somehow 8 a.m., Oginde's ministry and whatever EACC had been consulted, and they had given a green light. And in the same midnight, I think IEBC had also been consulted, and they had given their green light. And then IEBC is being asked, when you were giving the green light, because it's in the presidential appointment document, you need to read it. When they were giving the green light, what criterion did they follow? They follow what is set in the law. This is where we are coming to. And one of the things that is set in the law, that is for the appointment of a deputy president, they need to have been out for 6 months. There's a whole criterion there that was not followed. I like the way the court interpreted that conveniently for this particular case, and it is fine. We respect their decision. After all, they've made it. They are the judiciary. One thing we would like to say is this. What many people forget is that sometimes when they come for auctioneers, you say you're not an auctioneer, so you keep quiet. The next time they come for Mungiki, you say you're not Mungiki, you keep quiet. The day they'll come for you, you'll be alone because they'll have taken everybody else. So for me, the reason I stood with Rigiji was not because I like him, it was because his human rights were being infringed upon. But having said that, now, who is the person of Kindiki who is holding the Bible? And beautifully behind you, he's going to be sworn in today. And we wish him well. He was appointed by the president on the 29th of September 2022. And I remember he took the oath of office for the CS that's contained in our laws. And he swore to obey, uphold, and respect the Constitution of Kenya. He also swore to do it with honor and dignity. And he also swore to do good management of public affairs, amongst many other things that are contained in the oath of a CS. This is one of those few countries where you lift the Bible, say everything that is contained in the oath of office, and then go ahead to do exactly the opposite of what is contained in that oath of office. I am telling you, and I submit to you to the first time, I sat in this studio up here when Honorable Kaluma walked out on a show against Honorable Kagombe because of what had just happened under his watch, when young people were really butchered and tortured in Kisumu, and very many bodies. And that time they were saying that bodies had been hired. Let me tell you, we have seen what has happened in the Gen Z's protests. The gentleman on my right and the lady on my right will tell you the very many good things under Kindiki. They will tell you what he has done to transform the Ministry of Interior, and they'll give credit to him. But everything that has gone wrong under that ministry automatically becomes the problem of the IG. The Kindiki was not involved. So he's involved when it's doing good. He's not involved when it's doing bad. We have never lost such a huge number of young people within such a short time. And here is this person now holding the Bible. We want to swear him in. I wish you well. There's so much blood on his hands. But I'm going to say it here, and I submit to all of us that as a country we need to be asking ourselves, who are we appointing where? And what have they done during the time when they were in office? And what is imputable to them? I will tell you only one thing. For the first time, forget even the Gen Zs who were killed. Article 37 that talks about freedom of association and freedom of whatever, if you want to demonstrate and all, says peaceably and unarmed. For the first time, we saw armed goons with rungus coming out of vehicles, going into demonstrations, not being asked questions, and not being touched by the police. And we also saw, if you remember names like Shakila, young people holding water, an iPhone, and a flag being taken to Central Police Station. But the goons who came with sticks and batons to beat young people were never asked a question in Nairobi, in Eldoret, and in every other town where they went, including Mombasa. That was the first time we saw that. Under whose watch? They will say the IG of police conveniently. But we all know who was in charge of the Ministry of Interior. That is the man who is going to hold the Bible. Most finally, I think as a lawyer, I would submit that Kenya needs to change our laws a bit. Let us remove this thing of the oath of office. Because even in the books of James 5:12 says do not swear by anything. Matthew 5:34, do not swear by anything. Okay. I think we need to remove these things because these are the only people who hold a Bible, say things, and then do the opposite.
Yeah, just hold on that. Let us go to KICC, where our reporter Daniel Kariuki is following up on the preparations as we expect Professor Kithure Kindiki to be sworn in as the Deputy President. Good morning to you, Daniel Kariuki. And from KICC, what is the mood like? What are the preparations that are ongoing? And if you can also just let us know on some of the Kenyans dignitaries who have made their way to KICC, Kariuki.
Thank you very much, Dennis Aseto, and you have said it right. We are here at the KICC. This is where the whole ceremony is going to be taking place as the third deputy president, that is Professor Kithure Kindiki, is sworn into office after the High Court, a 3-judge bench, yesterday approved his swearing in by lifting the conservatory orders that had been issued earlier on, stopping his impeachment, or rather stopping his swearing in ceremony. And what is going to be happening, Aseto, is that Kithure Kindiki is going to be heading to KICC from the Ministry of Interior. Here at the Ministry of Interior, he's going to be bidding farewell to staff members and those who work in the Ministry of Interior before he walks to KICC, where he's going to be sworn into office. And once he is sworn into office, he will then head to the office of the Deputy President, that is at the Harambee House Annex, just opposite the office of the President. That's Harambee House, where he's going to be taking over as the third deputy of the Republic of Kenya. Right now, as we speak, Aseto, what is happening is entertainment as various guests continue to arrive here at this area. Of course, we can see several members of parliament. You can see cabinet secretaries have already arrived, and also from far I can see some of them Kenya Kwanza government officials, including the Secretary General of the UDA party, that's Hassan Omar, and other officials from the party, the UDA party. And also, as we speak, I can also see some of the members of parliament have already arrived, and also lawyers that were representing the National Assembly, as well as the Deputy President to be sworn in, Kithure Kindiki, in the High Court and also in the Senate, where there was a trial of the trial of the impeachment of the Deputy President, a trial hearing of the impeachment of Deputy President, the former Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua. And of course, I want to just engage one or two people before I head to the Ministry of Interior, where we are going to be seeing the Deputy President to be sworn in later on, bid farewell to the staff of the Ministry of Interior. And remember, he is not going to be going into the office because he has already resigned, or rather vacated the office of the Interior CS, so he cannot go back to the office because he is no longer the Cabinet Secretary of Interior Ministry. What he will be doing is just bidding farewell for those they have been working with. But I have some of the representative of the parties here just to hear what they have to say concerning today's celebrations. Thank you very much for joining us here on KTN News. It is a day that Kenya is going once again to be having to record history. It's going to be documenting history as we have the third deputy president under the new constitution. What's your take? And maybe you start by telling us your name.
Thank you so much. First of all, my name is Kariuki Ngonjiri. I represent the young people in the Kenya Kwanza administration, so come from the UDA party. I am particularly excited, as you can say many Kenyans are, because for the first time in the history of this country, we have seen a democratic process, and a process within a political party, all the way to what we have seen in our courts. This is a step that some of the people who fought for the independence of this country were looking forward to. And so I expect that Kenyans now view today as a new beginning, where some of the issues that were in the Kenya Kwanza manifesto in the 2022 election will be given priority, because we are now moving from sideshows to a deputy president who actually is a workaholic and somebody who is willing to deliver for the country. Everyone looks forward to this fresh start, and we are confident in the capacity, in the ability, in the competence, and in the management of the affairs of this country by Professor Abraham Kithure Kindiki.
So you've said we've seen a lot of maybe politics in the previous the 2 years that we have seen the Kenya Kwanza administration rule the country. Are you saying that right now you are not going to see politicking? Are you saying that Deputy President Kithure Kindiki, who is going to be taking over as the Deputy President, Kithure Kindiki, is not going to engage in politics? We are not going to see that?
If you look at his history, and having served as the Minister for Interior for 2 years, he's demonstrated that he understands, once given an assignment, of what he needs to do. Look at what he's done in the banditry areas. Look at what he's done to improve securities in those areas. Compare that with the former Deputy President and see the kind of approach towards, addressing public policy. And you can see a difference of like day and night between the two. This one is not a leader who looks at tomorrow as a way, or rather today as a way of advancing the politics of tomorrow. He looks at today as today, and the job that has to be done today. And so that is why everybody, even within government, you can check and see the mood. Everyone is happy. Kenya is happy. We want to see the better plan the bottom-up economic transformation agenda being activated, and that dream that the president had being actualized, and Kenyans seeing the fruits of whatever we campaign from a perspective of somebody who participated in the formation of the Kenya Kwanza government. I am particularly looking forward to, from day one, Professor Kindiki now assisting the president in the job and the big task ahead of restoring Kenya's economy.
Yeah, right. Thank you very much, Kariuki. That's a youth leader in the UDA party, and of course giving us insights and expectations that he has concerning Kithure Kindiki as he takes over as the third deputy president of the Republic of Kenya. And of course, today we understand the ceremony is not going to be very long. It's going to be short, as what is going to be happening here is just the swearing in. But of course, what we'll be looking forward to mostly are the speeches that are going to be made here, that are going to be made here by the various leaders, including President William Ruto. We are going to be keen to hear what he's going to talk about. Remember, there has been a great, or rather, there have been silence from President William Ruto concerning the impeachment process, the entire impeachment process of the former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, and he has never said anything concerning that. And of course, some of the issues that had been raised concerning the impeachment of Deputy President, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, were that he was subordinating his boss. We are going to be looking forward to what President Ruto will talk about in terms of expectations from his new deputy. And what is to be remembered is that Kithure Kindiki was best placed to take over as the running mate of President William Ruto in the 2022 elections. And as much as he was not picked and Rigathi Gachagua was picked, today he takes over as the deputy president, the position that he would have taken if he was taken as the running mate in the 2022 general elections. And so we are going to be keen, we are going to be following to see what exactly the president will talk about, his expectations on the leadership of Professor Kithure Kindiki, and also the speech of the deputy president, Kithure Kindiki. What is he going to be talking about, and what he looks forward to do in the deputy president's office. Remember, deputy president is the principal assistant of the president, and you remember when President William Ruto took over as the fifth president of the republic, he had several executive orders that he signed the roles of different leaders, that include the deputy president. He issued an executive order that gave roles to the deputy president, then the Rigathi Gachagua, and also roles that were to be performed by the prime cabinet secretary. So definitely today, at least through that executive order, we have a feel of what is expected of Kithure Kindiki as he enters into the deputy president's role this Friday. And also, we are going also to begin again to see his performance. Remember, while he was in the Ministry of Interior, a lot has been said, just like the guest that I was having here talked about some of the achievements that the CS, well, in the Ministry of Interior, that's the deputy president when he was the CS of Interior, some of the achievements that he had, including the bandits fights that the ministry geared to ensure that he had dealt with the bandits that were really disturbing in 8 counties. And so definitely some of the achievements that he has had in the Ministry of Interior, he might also have similar in the Deputy President's office. And so definitely as he takes over those roles that were allocated to him by the President, we'll be keen to see how he's going to ensure that he performs those roles. As we speak also, now the acting Interior Cabinet Secretary is the Prime Cabinet Secretary, that is Musalia Mudavadi, and also we are looking forward to know who will take over the office of the Cabinet Secretary in the Interior, who will be nominated and undergo the vetting in the Parliament and takes over, and if he will be able to achieve what the Cabinet Secretary then Kithure Kindiki in the Ministry of Interior achieved. That is just basically what is happening here, and just like I had told you before, it's just entertainment that is going on as various leaders, various guests, various invited guests continue to arrive here and take their positions. And also as we speak, I can see the Cabinet Secretary for Energy, that is Opiyo Wandayi, has just arrived, and other Cabinet Secretaries also in place. And what is to be noted is that as Kithure Kindiki takes over, he is taking over as Deputy President to a broad-based government. And when I mentioned about Opiyo Wandayi, you recall that he was the minority leader in the National Assembly. So definitely some of the accusations that the former Deputy President was going through are that he was not supporting the broad-based government. Well, we are going also to be keen to see how the Deputy President who takes over now is going to be dealing with this issue, or rather how he is going to be ensuring that he supports, or rather how he's going to be working with the broad-based government. Of course, broad-based meaning that we have opposition on board in the current setup of the government. Definitely, we are going to be keen, and I had given you what we expect as Kithure Kindiki comes here at the KICC. So in a few, we are going to be seeing what is going to be what is happening at the Ministry of Interior, where the Deputy President-elect is going to be bidding farewell to the staff and those who work in the ministry, or those who are in the Ministry of Interior. But for now, I want to hand it back to Aseto in studio. And of course, Aseto, I'll keep you posted because any time from now, the President William Ruto is going to be arriving here. Of course, the Deputy President-elect is going to have arrived already before the President arrives here and the ceremony takes place. And just like I had told you, it's going to be a short ceremony that is going to be happening here at the KICC. But for now, I hand it back to studio.
Thank you very much, Daniel Kariuki. They are joining us from the KICC, where the swearing in of Professor Kithure Kindiki will be taking place. And he's alluded to a lot of things that are on Kindiki's intrigue. Key among that would be just how he would marshal up support, especially in the mountain, and is Murima again together. Those are some of the issues that will be